Hey y'all, I'm Lauren and welcome to Cantina Cast. Today I am talking about Sanctuary, written by Lamar Giles. This is a Bad Batch spin-off novel. This novel comes out on August 5th. Lamar Giles has written a couple of Star Wars short stories, but this is his first Star Wars novel. This novel centers around rebuilding on Pabu after the tsunami that happens during season 2 of the TV show. So it does take place during season 2. I would recommend being caught up on season 2 before you read this. There is some foreshadowing of things to come, but there's not any outright spoilers in this novel as long as you're caught up on season 2. I had a lot of fun with this novel because it did feel very much like an extension of the Bad Batch. To me, it really felt like a written form of 2 or 3 Bad Batch episodes mashed together. I do wish that the novel went a little bit more into the background of the characters. I feel like that's something that I a lot of times look forward to with Star Wars novels, is that it gives us more of an opportunity to get into that backstory in a way that we don't always have time to go into in film or TV. So I was hoping to get that from this novel, and we didn't really quite get that. However, I still overall had a lot of fun with it. I think if you go into this looking for more Bad Batch content and like an extension of that show, if you are seeing it as that, then I think that this will be a fun read for you. To me, this novel did feel very much geared towards that type of person that wants more time with the characters, because to me, there wasn't really anything that happened in this novel that was super crucial for you to be able to understand the greater story of the Bad Batch or anything like that. However, I do think that if you love the characters and you want more time with those characters, then this was a great way to still be able to get that. I'm going to start talking about plot details and spoilers. So if you haven't read this yet and you're planning on it, now would be your time to turn back if you don't want any spoilers. So pretty much where we start off in this book is we have the Bad Batch trying to raise funds to rebuild Pabu after a tsunami that happened, which we are aware of already from season 2. And of course, as the Bad Batch does, the way that they are securing these funds is a little bit dangerous of a way to go about this. So where we start off is they are at this auction that is full of criminals that operate on the black market, and they are bidding on high price items, like historical high price items and pieces of art and things like that. So even though it's just an auction, it doesn't sound like it would be that high stakes. We're already kind of starting in a tense place because of the types of people that are at this auction. And of course, as is to be expected with the Bad Batch, this auction does not go according to plan, and they end up not ending up with the item at the price point that they expected to get it at. So it turns out that they actually have to steal it. So that turns into a whole thing. And even after they go through the trouble of stealing it, the buyer that they had secured for the item also starts being sketchy, and it seems like this is not really going to be a very straightforward transaction. On the way to go hand over this purchase to the buyer, they do end up getting a couple of passengers that are hitching a ride with them named Sohi and Kuto. Hunter has a pretty bad feeling about these people from the start, and Hunter is very difficult about that, which is to be expected from Hunter. I mean, that's one thing that I feel like Lamar Giles did a great job of, is like really staying true to those characters in this novel as we already know them from the TV show. Like, I felt like I was watching a Bad Batch episode in my head as I was reading this book, and Hunter's behavior is really one of those things that made me feel that way. So we do have Hunter having to come to terms with his control freak nature, because his skepticism about these passengers kind of causes friction on the ship. But also, in Hunter's defense, we do find out that these two passengers are not exactly what you think. In fact, we find out that the ISB is after them. And so for the ISB to be after you specifically, like, that's not really a great sign. So there is something going on with these people. And this whole thing with the ISB really turns into a problem, because once they do go to the buyer, who is named Celia, we do have Tech and Fee and Omega are with Celia, and they are trying to complete the transaction with her. And then at the same time that that is happening, the ISB is chasing down Sohi and Kuto. In that process, they see Hunter recognize him as a clone. So now the ISB is after them too, anyway. So the ISB is after Hunter. The ISB is after Sohee and Kuto. Like, it's not a good situation. Also, on top of that, we find out that Celia is pretty much a serial killer. When people deliver these rare antiques to her that she has a habit of purchasing a lot of times she kills people after the sale is completed. And at first I was just thinking maybe it's because she's purchasing illegal things and she doesn't want it to ever get back to like the government that she's doing that. But it also seems like she's killing people for fun. She's just a weirdo serial killer lady. So everybody does get back to the ship in one piece. However, the problem is not over because Celia and the head of this ISB group that is tracking them down are going to join forces and continue trying to hunt them down. And once everybody gets back to the ship, the truth kind of comes out about Sohee and Kuto. So we do find out that Kuto is a clone. That's why in the beginning of the book he's wearing a mask, is because he's trying to hide the fact that he's a clone. We also find out that Sohee was a separatist spy. So this is really hard for everybody to cope with. Sohee is of course an enemy to the clones, or at least was. And then they also view Kuto as kind of an enemy too, because he's a clone, but why is he able to forgive Sohee for killing his brothers? Something else that we learn about Sohee is that her father, who kind of like an adopted father, like to me it sounds kind of like Sohee grew up in sort of like an Oliver Twist kind of situation where her and a bunch of other kids without parents were living with this sketchy man. And her father, who they refer to as Father Crane, he is actually this ISB captain. He's looking for Sohee for personal reasons. He wants her to join the Empire, and Sohee doesn't want to do that because she has a lot of regrets about what she did for the separatists. So as this all comes out, everybody gets in a fight. Sohee and Kuto end up actually releasing some kind of like a stun gas and take over the ship. Once the Bad Batch wakes up, they wake up to find out that Sohee is like actively having a medical crisis. And it seems like it's probably going into labor because she's actually been like visibly pregnant this whole book so far. So even though the Bad Batch is mad at Sohee for being a liar, they don't want, anything bad to happen to her. So they are going to help her. So they do make a pit stop that's probably going to take multiple days. They need repairs. There's bad weather. Like they're going to be stopped for a while to get this handled. Once Hunter finds out this is probably going to take a while, he flips out, which leads to sort of an intervention about his control freak nature that he needs to work on. So I enjoyed getting to see that character moment of the Bad Batch and Hunter and everybody trying to work out their issues together. While time is passing, eventually what happens is the Bad Batch gets some more information from Kuto and Sohee, kind of trying to understand what's going on here, trying to work through this problem that they're all having. It is revealed that not only does Sohee have regrets about what she did for the Separatists, but she actually was about to surrender to the Republic. But the reason that she didn't is because of the Jedi Purge. And that's when she was like, okay, I actually just need to completely remove myself from this entire situation. And so that's really like a breakthrough moment for everybody because the Bad Batch, of course, feels very similarly about the Jedi Purge. That's when everybody's kind of like finally good again, is once they find out this whole backstory. Unfortunately, during this pit stop, though, the doctor that helps Sohee turns them into the ISB. So this does lead to a big confrontation when they're trying to escape and the ISB gets there and like meets them there. And one thing I liked about how Lamar Giles handled this scene is the way that they are able to get away from the ISB is that Wrecker ends up kind of like making all of the townspeople in this high foot traffic square angry at the ISB soldiers. All of the townspeople are angry because it sounds like they first of all kind of hate the Empire anyway. And also because Wrecker is like drawing attention, like, hey, these guys are here to do bad stuff. And so all the people get mad and start attacking the ISB soldiers and like really slow them down. We also see Sohee defeat Father Crane from the ISB who was after her, and she gets ready to sacrifice herself to protect her baby, but thankfully it turns out that she does survive. So everybody does get away, but Sohee and Kuto are both injured. And one thing that happened during this fight is that Tech and Fee were able to hack into Celia's yacht's computer system. They installed a program that started just slowly draining money from all of her accounts. And so that's the money that they're actually going to use to rebuild Pabu, since that sale that they originally had planned didn't work out. So now they've got even more money for Pabu than they thought they were going to have originally. And it's so satisfying at the end because Celia, this creepy serial killer lady, she ends up getting executed by Vader himself, who we do see on the page, which was fun and totally unexpected. I just didn't think we were going to see Vader in this book at all. So that was cool that that happened. The reason that she's executed by Vader is because one of the reasons that she was helping the ISB is because she was trying to figure out what Palpatine is building. Now, us as the reader, we know it's the Death Star, but Celia doesn't know that. She just knows that Palpatine has some sort of like top secret project. And the reason she has an inkling of this is that she's like a rich, well-connected political lady. And the Emperor doesn't like it that she's trying to do some digging. And so he sends Vader to take care of it. So I loved it that Celia eventually got exactly what she deserved. And where we leave off is that the Bad Batch invites Sohee and Kuto to come to Pabu and establish a life there. We don't actually see them get to Pabu, but it is implied that the Bad Batch is going to help them get set up and establish a life there. And that's pretty much right where the book ends, is with this understanding that Sohee and Kuto are going to be okay on Pabu with their new baby. So as I said at the beginning of the video, I really had fun with this book as sort of like an extension to the Bad Batch. It felt sort of like a detour where we got to have some more Bad Batch episodes, but in written format instead of on the screen. I felt like one of the strengths of this book is that Lamar Giles did a really good job of taking those on-screen characters and making them still feel like the exact same characters that we know from the TV show, but in a written format. Let me know in the comments if you've read this one, what you thought of it. And thanks so much for watching, y'all. I hope that y'all have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.